So today I want to give you my honest opinion on how I feel about moving to Bali. If you want to spend a couple of months here, maybe spend a portion of your year, half a year, or stay here permanently, this can be one of the most amazing places to spend multiple months, if not even the majority of the year, if you do it right. But there's certain mistakes, or let's say misconceptions, that if you have them, you might come here, and some people do that and then they leave and they keep on like banging on and hating that Bali is this, Bali is that, this is wrong about it. And everything from how to practically spend multiple months, if not even the whole year here, if you would like to do that, to just social things, infrastructure, a little different also social pressures, also things around dating. If you spend the majority of the year here, there's beautiful people all around. From my side, since 2017, I've been here pretty much every year, sometimes a couple of months, sometimes I spend even 4 or 5 months a year in Bali, and the island is always changing. A couple of months for me personally, out of every year in a tropical destination. Bali is just so high up there, but is it the best place? I want to tell you the pros and cons, let's say the light and the darkness of the Island of Gods. Welcome to Bali. A potential instant life upgrade at a lower cost. It doesn't get much cheaper than Southeast Asia. Let me give you an idea where you could be staying here. If you do Bali right, it can be a massive life upgrade in terms of your cost of living and what you get for it. Like, let me break it down. I started my morning. I wake up. I'm living pretty much a 15-minute walk away from the beach. I go for a little walk, a little run, dogs, ocean, waves. Then I come back. I have some super fresh papaya, which costs pretty much $1 for a big local papaya. Local fruits. In terms of the neighborhood I'm staying right now, Canggu, for the past week, this spot here, it's $50 a night. The monthly rent maybe is a bit cheaper, but the truth is sometimes people are like, hey, I pay $500 for like my villa. Maybe if you shared with like 4 or 5 people, because that is kind of like what you're looking at. A nice small spot, 1,000, 1,500, bigger. It is not that cheap. You can stay in a guest house for maybe $500 a month, and that can do it really affordably, but it's even beyond that. It's kind of like the whole setting. Bali has so many different neighborhoods. And if you want to stay here for a couple of months, you have everything from amazing beaches, great surf spots, mountains, rice fields. That is just a huge upgrade. You're paying maybe the same money, but your life improves like that. It's a huge reason. That is why Southeast Asia is so popular. I really like it, but the downside of it is a little bit daylight is slightly limited. If it's cloudy, I feel like it's a bit too dark. We have a super nice kitchen. For me, it's kind of a luxury to have a nice kitchen where I can be cooking. Upstairs, super cozy bedroom. We have 2 bathrooms, even big TVs. Definitely not like you can live like a king on $30 a day. Depending on what kind of lifestyle you're looking for, it will cost you a certain amount, but what you get is still roundabout, I would say, double of what you get in Europe or in the US. So from that perspective, and I do like the tropical setting, but there is downsides with it. And in terms of transport, it's probably the most fun thing in Bali. It's just this little feeling of freedom, you know? The scooter is 2.1 million EDR, which is like $120, $30 a month. And what does it come down to? Daily, $4 or $5. Gasoline basically costs nothing. So yeah. Nobody really wants to think about what if something goes wrong. Let's say you're on the ground, you're on the island, maybe you're spending in Bali a couple of months, maybe you've been traveling for a year and you want to continue this lifestyle. Or even if you go on a short trip. In Bali, I've heard some horror stories. You go to the hospital and the bills that I sometimes hear about here can rack up quickly. And this is where today's video sponsor, Safety Wing, comes in. So Safety Wing is a travel and medical insurance that covers you almost worldwide, and they have 2 plans. If you're going on a short trip, couple of weeks, maybe a month or 2, Safety Wing Essentials covers the most bases. Unexpected emergencies, hospital stays, you are covered, and it's super flexible. You need it for a week, you need it for a month. It's almost like, it's kind of like a subscription. But if you want to live this life a bit more similar to me, around the world, long term, for multiple months, this is where Nomad Complete comes in. This is a real medical insurance that covers you worldwide You can choose your doctors, and it even covers serious things like cancer treatment, even mental health. You can just scroll through the website and see the wide array of situations that are going to be covered for you. So a full global medical insurance. It will be the first link in the description. You can already set up a free account. So when you're hitting the road, you can choose the plan that matches best to keep a peace of mind when on the road. And first link in the description, check out Safety Wing. Let's continue. We are at the Padi Social Club right now, one of the spots I wanted also to check out for a while. One of the spots that didn't exist just a few years when I was walking along my favorite rice field in Canggu. Everything is developing, and with that there is big opportunities, big pros and cons. And let's sit down. I made a bunch of notes and I want to give you the honest perspective. There is a big opportunity for high daily pleasures, the small pleasures of walking along on the beach, of drinking the freshest coconuts, of eating the juiciest papayas, of seeing beautiful people all over. We're going to talk about that as well. And it's kind of like low friction living. But the trade-off, there is traffic, there is inefficiency, but just from the perspective of the kind of restaurants you can be going to, how your daily life can be looking like, and just purely on the surface. You take $1,000 and you bring them to Bali, your life looks nice because you can enjoy all the things that nature gave you while living a simple, beautiful life. You take $2,000 and you can live a life that starts to look pretty fancy. And anything beyond that, at some point, I would say $5,000 plus, there is a point of diminishing returns where you have a super nice, big place, like in terms of even renting a bike, just a general cost of living. I don't want to turn this into a video about hey, my meal costs $5 or $10 or whatever. But you truly still get a lot of value in Bali, but you do have to mention that some places, they kind of position themselves also as a bit more expensive spots. Some also condos, and especially things like gyms can easily cost $100, $200 plus if we're talking about the really nice spots. So you have to choose what you want to invest in, how you want to live your life. And in a bit, I'm going to talk about the different neighborhoods and my recommendations. But first, Bali in terms of building a base and maybe even investing directly in the island. I know a good amount of people personally that have built either villas here, maybe opened up a cafe. And personally, recently, I've been talking to a guy that is developing some of the most interesting condo concepts. Actually, I might talk to him. Let me tell you a bit more about what the Anta Group is doing on Bali. So what you're looking at here, this is Pandawa Hills. It's in the south of Bali, only 5 minutes away from one of the best beaches, Melasti. And the private villas, you can actually occupy as the owner for most of the year, and they can be rented out when not in use. And this project is really upscale. The infrastructure, the services, it includes wellness, restaurants, even have their own surf school. And the entire development is managed by Windham, one of the world's largest hotel brands. And it has a projected ROI of up to 13.8%. And look, recently I was just driving through Canggu and I've actually accidentally passed another one of their projects, the Anta Hotel Canggu. It's being finalized right now. Just check out their website. On there, they have their different projects. There you can even see the construction progress publicly, really giving you the transparency, showing the build quality, the materials and timelines. So if you would like more information, you can just book a quick consultation call with them to explore if Pandawa Hills or any other of the Anta Group projects in and around Bali could make sense for you. I've just talked to them and they said that the leasehold registration documents would be covered for free. So just mention that you come through Danny. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll show you a bit more. It's really exciting to see what they're building on the island. I'll drop the link in the description. And now let's talk a bit more about Bali. And so this is really one of the best parts here, a little bit on the side of Canggu, Pererenan. Always struggle to learn these names. Much quieter, much nicer cafes. So this here, Bokashi, never been before. Super, very tasteful, but at the same time also simple, just nature-based. Pretty big restaurant. Having a double espresso, some nice little kombucha. Would record even more here, but the thing is they're playing music. So let's talk social life and networking and dating as well, of course, certainly. Look, the thing is, Bali truly has people from all over the world. And with every neighborhood, there is also a little bit of a different crowd, a little bit of a different overarching kind of like energy and certain set of interests that come together. It's partly geographical. If there's waves, there's more surfing. If there's more development, there might be a bit more of like a business-minded let's say identity, a DNA to the neighborhood. If there's just more tourism, more party, all of that is a thing to choose. But just in terms of people, the huge pros are obviously that here is creatives, remote workers, entrepreneurs from all over the world. And you can meet people that either stay here multiple months, maybe even long term, or you can meet people that are passing through and then connect in other parts of the world. This is why I always loved Bali. Pretty much anytime I come back here, there's somebody that I know, or I see somebody on their stories, they're touching down, I'm like, what's up? And you can link. If you spend enough time here, Bali is one of those places that is gonna repay you for months and years to come in terms of social opportunity. Very easy access to conversations. There's all kinds of events, little circles, run clubs, social events that are happening in Bali. You just have to research and find your cup of tea that you want to indulge in. And so you see, when it comes to the downsides, really depending on where you end up staying, Bali can be pretty loud and hectic. Later I want to talk to you about the different neighborhoods that I feel like all of them have a pro and a con. I still couldn't decide where I would be actually staying long term. But the thing is, if you have the wrong accommodation, this background noise is pretty much what you're going to be hearing all the time. And in the last couple of years, there was so much construction, so much developing going on, which in areas like Canggu, it feels like it's slowly starting to come together. So you have to be a bit careful with that. You have to keep it in mind. If you come here, especially renting a place for 1 month, I would never do that before checking it out live. Can be risky. It's a big factor. Another one is just generally air quality in the really busy districts. If you're stuck in traffic, all the scooters, all the congestion, it's a factor to keep in mind. And in a neighborhood like Canggu, you genuinely have to plan your life around the time of the day where you want to head somewhere. Because if you're heading out at 6 p.m., you might get stuck in traffic like crazy and you're not going to enjoy it. So those are all just little things to keep in mind. For me, not a huge drawback. I literally don't drive, or I prepare, or if I feel a bit masochistic that day, because you are gonna suffer in that traffic sometimes. But yeah, so here at the Paddy Social Club, a place I wanted to check out in quite a while. Music is buzzing, and there's also this bamboo gym over there. Let's take a little look. Hello. Good, good. I just wanted to take a quick look. Is that okay? Yeah. The people are working out over here. And then we got a little, oh my goodness, that is dope. We got a pool right next to, it's kind of like a little bit of a, I would say, CrossFit. Not quite, that is what it's called. Bind Bali. That's how you can find it. And we're just sitting back there basically. Let's talk about generally also opportunities of moving here. I want to keep it short. I'm not an expert on it because I have always somebody that helps me out with things like that. Here in Bali, it has been Gaia Bali Visa. They always help me out to sort out if I'm just here spontaneously for a month or two, we get a visa extension. If I come for longer, maybe 3 months, 4, 5, up to 6 months, you can be here on the, I believe it's, basically it's like a business visa. You cannot work on the ground. It's not a working permission, and if you want to be permanently here, 6 months plus, that is basically entailing becoming a real resident here. You can do that as well. That is called the Kitas. And with that, you have to move like a significant percentage of your life here. You have certain responsibilities with that. And that is something that is worth considering if you want to do that step. I will link Gaia Bali Visa down below. They're always helping me out. Great guys. And they can answer all your questions when it comes to that. The neighborhood breakdown. I'm sitting right now on the rice field of Canggu. Pretty much the only area that is a little bit quieter, is like still very broad. Let me be honest with you. Last time I was in Canggu, I was like, this neighborhood is cooked. There's so much construction going on. The roads are terrible. You can barely drive. There's so much, like there was such a huge influx of Slavs, basically, mostly Russians, some Ukrainians,
Generally, the whole kind of like post-Soviet Union world somehow discovered Bali in the last 2, 3, 4 years due to unfortunate events in the context of, you know. But with that, now that I'm back in Canggu, in the last video, you should definitely watch it. I did like a much more walking, driving through the different areas, showing you some nice parts, giving you a real visual of which I'm gonna overlay some of that. And what I have to say is in Canggu, they brought in so many roads. They really improved the infrastructure. Traffic is still crazy in the peak hours. But all of that construction, let's say last time it felt like 30 to 40% of Canggu is literally a work in progress. You hear the hammering, you see the trucks driving, and now it's at a level of maybe 20%, where the neighborhood slowly starts to come together. And the big positive of that, this neighborhood is very busy in a good way. There's a lot of people here. It's very social, it's fast-paced. It is a digital nomad hub. You have some of the best cafes, some of the best gyms in Canggu. It is very high energy. It's easy to network, but it's also easy to burn out, and it's kind of a high distraction environment. There's always something going on. There is almost every day a beautiful sunset where you can be sipping on the coconuts, and also kind of like the party is moving into this neighborhood. The beach clubs, bigger restaurants, loud music. And so if you find kind of your little corner in Canggu, I think it can still be a great spot. And also kind of the neighborhood is growing out. It's almost like all the time upwards of the island. There's more developing happening. And with that, it's kind of like how Canggu used to be, is now more in the Pererenan Sese area, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a bit bad with the names. But basically, if you drive out a little bit out into Canggu, kind of where I showed you the cafe where I was earlier on, where I've also forgot the name, but I mentioned it before. It's still absolutely lovely. And when I see what kind of gyms are opening up next year, this year actually 26, I'm excited to see what is going to happen with Canggu. It can go both ways. It can become a super party hub where there's a bunch of drunks hanging around and party schmarty marty. And a lot of people that I knew that used to live in Canggu have moved to Uluwatu. This is the neighborhood that I first showed you in the last video, and I have to say, I was quite intrigued. It's more spacious, it's more ocean focused. The nature there is so much more beautiful. You have the cliffside, you have crystal clear blue waters, and it just feels wider, it feels quieter, it feels more peaceful, but not in kind of like a semi, like just woo-woo way, but in a way of there is high-level cafes, co-working areas, 1 or 2 decent gyms, good gyms, but it's like just in 2021, 22, there was almost no development where you could like really long-term stay there without feeling like you're literally living in the village. Because when you drive through Uluwatu, you still see the cows, you see the roosters, and I absolutely personally love that. But now it finally got to a place where there is also a lot of stuff developing. Also, what I mentioned before, I would say it's a better area for a stronger routine. It is a little bit more intentional living. If you're into surfing, that is absolutely the area to go. The only drawbacks of it really for me is that it still feels a little bit too cozy for my taste. I feel like there's almost like a little bit not enough happening quite yet for me to, I'm not sure, I haven't spent that long there. And I think next time when I will be in Bali, I'll be spending more time in Uluwatu. This time it was kind of like a bit of a 50-50 in terms of how much I've spent between Canggu and Uluwatu. And just generally the rest of Bali, and as a hotspot to mention obviously Ubud, much more touristy. There's more families, more older people, kind of like short-term tourism. Also the layout is a little bit different, kind of like there is the only area where I tend to meet a lot of Americans, but they're also like everywhere a little bit, but they're like a bit more, which is kind of interesting. Of course, for many, many years, if not even decades, good cafes, amazing restaurants. And it's kind of like the nature, jungle, a bit more of a, also if you get out a little bit of Ubud, more of a slower and more introspective vibe. When I first got to Bali, I've actually like pretty much went on a mission. I was based in Ubud and I went to the north, I went to Mount Agun, I went to areas that I've never been. And I absolutely loved it. But for me personally, it's kind of like not an area to like really live. But for some people it is. It might be interesting for you. Maybe spend a month there or so. Personally, I feel like it can feel a bit isolating. If you are looking for that solitude, this is absolutely the place to go, or anywhere else really in Bali. Because outside of Ubud, you're going to be just living with the Balinese people. And that is also kind of a thing about, just to mention as a side note, they're some of the most kind of like honorable people in the sense that they really hold on to their culture, to their identity, to their religion, to their way of living. You still see a lot of kind of like old way of living. And they're genuinely, like, I rarely mention that because I'm personally not a big fan of going to countries and just somebody tells you, oh, hello, how are you? And then you're like, oh my God, the people here are so sweet because somebody smiles at you. No, I can genuinely tell you, yes, there is some tourist traps. Yes, there is a lot of people coming really from all of Indonesia to Bali. And with that, some come from a lower socioeconomical level. And when I get like my stuff, for example, stolen on this rice field, I just understand. I've actually had a conversation with somebody and she was like, you know, sometimes you have to pay Bali. You know, you have to pay Bali back. And even when that happened, I was like, look, like this doesn't represent the whole place. This just comes with the growth. It's a natural thing. It's an unfortunate thing, but it is kind of what happens when there is, you ship in people to like work. And this is also, of course, a small topic. You can let me know your opinion, how you see it, but it's always kind of like the double-edged sword of this level of development, where is it sustainable? How much of it is truly supporting also the local economy and it makes it sustainable in a way that where everybody can win, where Bali can win, where the local people can win, where the country as Indonesia as a whole can win, and all the guests that are here. I think it always needs to be a mutual kind of like synergistic exchange. And I hope that Bali will manage to do that, because the reality is that, especially in the last couple of years from what I hear, there are some businesses opening up without the proper licensing. People build randomly stuff that then needs to be torn down. And I do feel like it starts to get a little bit less Wild West in terms of that stuff. And obviously in terms of sustainability, like nobody really wants just stuff to randomly pumps up. And I wrote down a couple of notes in terms of just reality checks. Coming to Bali, like a lot of people associated with kind of like with finding yourself, you go into the jungle. And to me personally, that like, if you come to Bali knowing what you're looking for here and you're very intentional and you already come with a certain discipline and a certain clarity, this can be one of the best places in the world to be. But if you have a bit of a drifting mentality, you're easily get caught up in certain energies. That is, again, talking about the different neighborhoods. It's kind of like Canggu is really a bit of a flex. A lot of people leave Canggu because they cannot handle this energy where a bunch of people drive shirtless. What? The only way to get tan, you know? But like people are in crazy shape. People are peacocking, really. It's almost like, you know, you arrive on Bali week one, one button open, 3 buttons open. Within 3 weeks, you're barely wearing a shirt. And it kind of like, in many ways, it amplifies either already who you are, and also you can easily, if you don't come here with a very formed identity and knowing what you want, you can always, like every place you spend a lot of time in affects you. But the reality is, if you're in Canggu, it really feels like people are measuring themselves here with what kind of scooter they're driving, which is pretty ridiculous. It's kind of like the whatever. The cheapest scooters cost $5, the cooler scooter costs $10, and the biggest scooters cost $15. But people are like, oh, I'm on the big scooter, and my scooter is neon colored. It's hilarious, $15 a day. So it's kind of like, in a way, like this drift can easily turn into chaos. You can get really consumed by Bali and get stuck here because of the low cost of living, because of this certain comfort. So health is really accessible, physical and mental, in Bali, and it can be optimized, like in terms of all these wellness clubs and gyms and everything, but it is not guaranteed. And the burnout here comes subtle, and it maybe happened to me to a slight extent when I spent here many months. And the honeymoon truly fades, because when you first come here, you go to the nicest places, maybe you spend a bit more money than you wanted to, and then over time you start to notice like the infrastructure in many ways is not quite up to standard yet, but it's getting better. And the long game reveals everything. And in my opinion, also how you personally feel about Bali, it's kind of like, it's sometimes like when you get into a relationship and you had certain expectations that just couldn't be fulfilled because you had the wrong expectations of the place and what you wanted to get from it. Or this, let's say, relationship, for example, with the island. Let's say it like that. Also, there is a bit of a pass-through energy. a lot of relationships, or let's say a lot of what people complain about is that relationships that are built here because it's kind of like transient, people come and go, especially people that stay here long term on the ground, they're almost like getting a bit depressed because it's like you make a friend and then they leave and you kind of stay. And with that, I feel like you really have to consciously make up your life setup and also think about what kind of relationships you want to have. And because of the first point that we talked about, the lower cost of living, you also have to keep in mind it's kind of like a low barrier of entry. There is all kinds of people that just have a backpack on their back. They might be 19 years old or they might be 39 years old, no judgment, and they're just coming here to have a good time, to stay in a hostel, to maybe go to nature, maybe have a random hookup, maybe party hard, or maybe hit the gym and then go back home, you know? And then there is people that are here to experience the best of the island, that maybe want to put it into their kind of what I'm doing, into their set, into a little bit their portfolio of different locations around the world to live. And that all just comes down to like knowing the places you go to, knowing how to reach out to people, make the connections that you want to have. And Bali has plenty of opportunity to do that. You just have to be proactive when doing that. But for me personally, if I stay in a neighborhood that is kind of like closer to a beach club, which kind of happened like this time around, I really didn't enjoy the energy. Everybody goes to party, it's Saturday night. And because of this very wide range of people that you can meet, for example, Canggu right now has a very big Eastern European crowd, a lot of Russians, a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of really people from all over Europe, but it is a little bit heavy on the Slavic side right now. You have to keep that in mind. And it is also heavy on the short-term like side that, like, you know, you just see some guys, I don't know if they arrive drunk already on the airplane. It's not the majority of people at all, don't get me wrong, but it is a little side factor to consider when you choose the neighborhood to spend more time in. I'm gonna, like I said, talk about the neighborhoods a little bit later on. Those are the cons. And speaking of dating, this is a thing that a lot of people wanted me to talk about. And I'm always like, I don't know if I want to use my kind of like travel and remote living channel to share these things. But the reality is, me personally, I've spent the majority of my 20s in a few long-term relationships over multiple years. I'm speaking 2, 3, pushing 4 years. Situations where I've been traveling around the world and also spending a lot of time in Bali with one person. And but I've also been a single man in Bali multiple times. When I was in my early 20s, when I was in my mid-20s, when I'm now slowly but surely pushing the good 30. And I do have to tell you that because of this wide range of different kind of people, there's also different kind of places in life that people are. Some people are here, they're just here for a couple of weeks, and you understand what kind of energy comes with that. They want to have a good time, they want to party, they want to, you know, have a story to brag to their friends back home, and that goes for guys as it goes for girls. Then there's people that are maybe here longer, that are maybe looking for a serious relationship. But because, it starts to rain now, enjoy the ambient sound, I would say. But because of that, there is a big mismatch in priorities and kind of like desired outcomes. And as you can imagine, there's the best gyms, there's great food, it attracts a lot of beautiful people. And once you arrive here, it's kind of like almost also a bit of a group effect and a group pressure. Everybody likes to dress nice, everybody likes to work out. Damn, am I gonna get flooded here? Am I gonna get wet talking about? Bali in many ways is kind of like a pressure cooker of the modern world. People from all over the world come here. Everybody hops on whatever dating apps. Me personally, I feel like in Bali, it's like, try as much as possible, it's my recommendation, to meet people in real life. Go to social events, or it's also so much easier to just say hi to somebody, be it in a cafe, be it somewhere else, knock up a real connection, and also potentially maybe take it slow, get to know people, build a friend circle, or don't, whatever you want to do. But the reality is there is a lot of opportunity, but a lot of people also complain about, especially the ones that stay here kind of long term. There's like literally different groups of people that are looking for very different things. But the reality is, if you're doing well anywhere you're doing back home right now, you're going to be doing perfectly fine in Bali. I know plenty of people that met long-term partners, maybe even their life partners in Bali. And because it's such an international place, you're very likely can meet people from back home or from the other end of the world. And I think in terms of that, it is great, but be ready. I do have to be very honest with you. I don't know what the layout is of how many guys and girls there is on the island, but the reality is, like man and woman, that there is plenty of guys that will always be willing to invite some girls to the fanciest dinners, to invite them to their villa, blah, 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 blah. And there is a bit of an economy going on in terms of that, so don't be too disappointed. There's always some guy, like when I'm like in Ubud, he's like, yeah, this girl from Canggu broke my heart. And I'm like, brother, come here, you want a hug? And it can be a bit of a complicated place. It's kind of like modern dating on steroids to some extent. But if you want to, it is a great place, as long as, again, Bali in all aspects is a place where you have to consciously design your life, know what you're looking for, or at least be in the process of exploring that. And just from the amount of interesting people that you can meet, definitely, obviously, one of the best places in the world, but not for, let's say it like that. If you come here already a bit lost and vulnerable and prone to get your heart broken, Bali will give you the medicine that you need in terms of the hard love, let's say it like that. If you come here, you're all good, you're perfect by yourself, you want to meet all kinds of people with different intentions, or maybe even a bit, at least a little bit free of the outcome, this can be a fantastic place. I think you get the idea. It's modern dating. Bali, very modern in terms of Canggu, Uluwatu. Be ready. Be ready for the best and the worst of what this part of human life has to offer. Good luck. This is kind of my thoughts about living couple of months, maybe even the majority of the year in Bali, if it's worth it, if I can recommend it, and I think you get the idea. There is a reason why I keep coming back to Bali. It's one of the most dynamic places I know in terms of a tropical environment that changes so quickly, where some years I visit and I'm like, I'm not sure. And this is one of the few times where I'm leaving the island and I feel like I'm very curious for where it's going to be heading. Is it going to be, at the end of the day, more of a tourist destination still, where it's more about the beaches, the party, the vacationing, and like a small side community of people that are living like in every more vacation hotspot? Or is it going to truly develop a long-term kind of, and I think it will happen too in one way or another, because it's already here. I personally don't really like the word expat, I like to say it like that. It's like people from other countries choosing to have a piece or the majority or all of their life in a different country. And Bali is a place like no other. It has some of the biggest pros, it has big cons. And yeah, you're welcome to check out, or definitely check out the previous video I've shot here, because there I take you live with me through different neighborhoods, through different weeks. You're even gonna see how I look a bit different when I arrive, so a bit puffier cheeks, a little bit pale. And then throughout 2 months, I've had a great time. Bali did his job for me. I had a little metaphor about this rice field here. I love it when I arrive and they have just planted the rice. Kind of like comes out of the ground, out of the soil, it grows, and you cannot rush that process. It takes weeks, it takes months, and then it's harvesting season, and then you repeat the process. And I've been walking this field since, I don't know, 2019 or maybe even 18. And every time I'm here, it's usually a very productive time in one way or another. I love having different locations personally around the world where I know my way around. And if it's a place that changes a little bit, that adds for me always a bit of a curiosity. And I think this is for the first time where I might be, for the first time in many years, coming back to Bali, maybe even in like a month or two again, to because if you're new here by any chance, what I generally do on this channel, I do document my life, I document my travels, but everything is under the premise of building a life of freedom around the world. So whenever I'm especially in a place like Bali, it's always about seeing the pros and cons of spending more time in this location. Of course, the financial side, what you can get for your money is always a big factor. The social factor is relevant, but it's always when I'm in places like I'm slowly pushing my 30 and I am really thinking, where do I want to spend at least maybe half or a third of my years continuously going forward. And this is where I have been looking at some real estate in Bali. This is where I have been truly observing where this place is going. And for now, I have more positive impulses and perspectives on it, but it's always a matter of perspective. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's little bit more of a sit-down video. Let me know your thoughts if you have been to Bali before, how you feel like it has been changing, how you feel about it, your personal pros and cons of visiting this place, or if you maybe even live here. I will be super curious to hear your perspective. And if you want to see where I am right now, you can join me on Instagram, because usually the videos always come out a little bit later. And yeah, with that, this is what Got a World to See stands for. More freedom, more opportunity, more adventure. This has been Bali.